Hi, my name is Courtney Bryant, and this is my presentation on summary of Euthyphro. In Euthyphro by Plato, Euthyphro comes to town to press charges against his father for killing a man. His father bound and gagged a slave and left him in a ditch to die because that slave killed another slave. Euthyphro boasted his knowledge of piety and impiety, and that he knew what he was doing was right. Socrates, hearing this, asked him to explain to him what is piety so that it might help him to defend his own impiety charges on his own trial. Euthyphro consents, and they start the debate. But after each definition Euthyphro gives, Socrates denies each, giving a reason why it's not true. The first definition Euthyphro gives, he says what he is doing right then by pressing charges against his father is for his wrongdoings is piety. Socrates says that is not so, because that is an example, not a definition of the universal meaning I need for piety. Euthyphro tries again, and for his second definition he says piety is what is pleasing to the gods. Socrates says this is good, but the gods argue and differ, so there is no true definition to what is pleasing to all gods. Euthyphro tries to argue to Socrates that the gods will argue the justification on what his father has done, though Socrates says that there is different levels of justification for what his father has done. The third definition Euthyphro tries to give is what all the gods love is pious, and what all the gods hate is impious. Socrates introduces the Euthyphro dilemma and tells him this is wrong, and asks him, is pious loved by the gods because it is pious, or is it pious because it is loved by the gods? Socrates tries to make this more clear by saying to Euthyphro, do we call something being held as carried because it is being carried and for no other special reason? Euthyphro says yes. Socrates says this is the same as piety and what the gods like. So therefore, since it is liked just in itself does not make it pious. The action must be called pious before it is liked. So then again, Euthyphro was wrong. But Euthyphro still tries to argue that he still says an action is liked by the gods because it is pious. But Socrates says, you may say that's true, but that is not a definition, even though the gods will approve. For the fourth definition, Socrates gives this one. He says, piety is a species of the genus justice, and explains it, but then says this is not true as well. Euthyphro then proposes that piety is looking out for the gods. Socrates, coming and counters this and says, looking out for the gods is another way of saying you're trying to make the gods better, and that's frowned upon by the gods. Euthyphro then tries to use his fifth and final definition. He says piety is an art of sacrifice and prayer, and tries to explain that piety is a way to knowledge of exchange with the gods. But Socrates argues and says, how will the gods benefit from a human gift if they are supposed to be all-knowing? He also warns Euthyphro that the species of commerce is knowledge of exchange. Euthyphro denies this by saying that it's an honor or favor, not trying to better the gods. Euthyphro does admit, though, that piety is connected to what the gods are partial to. Socrates still denies this and says this is not true, and instead of keep going, Euthyphro leaves, says he has another arrangement he has to go to, and refuses to admit to all of it. Then Socrates is left with no explanation of piety so that he can defend his own charges of impiety in his trial.